little.
Okay. All right. Well, before we officially begin, I'd just like to ask everybody to please mute your cell phones. Okay, welcome to the Brevard City Council, our regular meeting. I want to welcome everybody that has come here in person and also to everybody that is watching us on the live broadcast. I will officially call this meeting to order. I'd like to start by introducing the people up here on the podium, on the dais. On my far right, we have our city attorney, Mac McKellar. Next to him, we have Councilman Maurice Jones. Then we have Councilwoman Geraldine Dinkins, Councilman Mac Morrow, myself, Mayor Maureen Kopoloff, our city clerk, Denise Hodgson, City Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem Gary Daniel, Councilman Aaron Baker, and City Manager William Hooper. With that, I would like to invite Pastor Andrew White from the Calvary Baptist Church to please come and give the invocation.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, it's an honor to be here. Thank you. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, we are thankful. Your word says that every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. You've given us many good gifts. The chief and most precious gift you've offered to us is forgiveness through the sinless life, substitutionary death, and victorious resurrection of your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you for grace that no one could deserve, but that you offer freely through faith in your Son. You've given us the gift of freedom, which we enjoy and celebrate each day in this wonderful country we call home. Thank you. You've given us the gift of government, which exists to restrain evil through judgment and to reward good. Thank you. You have promised to give wisdom liberally to all who ask for it, so we ask now that you would grant this council wisdom to govern the city we love with equity, fairness, and generosity. Please give each council member wisdom to steward resources faithfully, to build and plan for the future according to your will, and to exercise leadership in a way that brings blessing to the citizens of Brevard. Thank you for each man and woman that loves and serves our city through involvement in this governing body. Thank you for each citizen here who loves and serves our city through civic involvement. Thank you for these student athletes who you've given gifts to that have represented well this city and this region. And thank you for the churches in Brevard that honor your great name through the preaching of your word and who demonstrate your mercy and grace by selflessly loving and serving our beloved city. We pray that you would be honored and glorified in this city and through this meeting tonight. We offer our thanksgiving and petitions in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pastor Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your church?
I can. I'm new here to Brevard, so we're really excited to be back in the state of North Carolina. We were in Texas for 4 years before coming here, but we lived in the Outer Banks for 7 before that. So we love North Carolina and are glad to be back. And our church is Calvary Baptist Church, and it's right over by Blue Ridge Community College on Osborne Road. It's a big brick building with like a white banner that says Calvary Baptist Church. So our services are Sundays at 11, and we'd love to have you.
Well, welcome to Brevard. We're
Thank you.
so glad to have you and your family here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Attention, honor, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you have a quorum. All members are present.
Okay, Council, you have a draft agenda that was sent out. I would like to recommend one change, and that is that we move the awards recognition before public comments so that our athletes can get recognized and then go over to the Board of Education, where I understand they have additional recognition. So perhaps somebody would like to make a motion to that effect.
I move we accept the agenda with the amendment as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, this isn't an adjustment to the agenda, but I just want to remind the council that we've given you a supplemental piece of information here to accompany item K3.
Okay. Okay, and, we have no minutes to approve, so we can move right into the best part of the evening, huh? All
Yes.
right. Okay, well, I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this. We have such a large crowd, which is absolutely wonderful. You know, the city is so proud of each and every one of you that we absolutely wanted to express that formally, and we wanted to have you come here to our city council meeting to meet the leadership of this city, because you are the future leadership of this city. And we are just so proud of you winning at the state level, the championships. I know how much effort, perseverance, dedication, hard work went into that. So at this point, I'm actually going to recognize the girls volleyball team. So if I could have the coaches and the girls volleyball team sort of come up here. And we'll figure this out. Okay, big team, great. Here, we'll just sort of line up here.
There's no way we can take a picture this.
All right. And I am going to apologize because I do not know all of your names, but I believe we've got Coach Corey Bryson. That's you? Okay, I guessed right. Okay. Do we have another coach here?
No.
Two more, okay. All right, wonderful. And your names?
Mel McMurtry.
Nell?
Caleb Hill.
Nell, Caleb, and Corey, thank you all for coming. And to our student athletes, thank all of you for coming. And I'm going to read this proclamation. Proclamation number 2023-21 in recognition of Brevard High School girls volleyball team winning the 2023 state championship. I'm just going to turn this way so that I can see all of you. Just move here.
Could read into the mic and then they can hear you up.
Yes, and I'm actually by the microphone. What a good idea, Denise. That's why we have a city clerk. Whereas on November 4th, 2023, Brevard High School girls volleyball team captured the 2023 North Carolina High School Athletic Association NCHSAA 2A Volleyball State Championship. Woo! Yay! And whereas, under the guidance of head coach Corey Bryson and assistant coaches Nell McMurtry, Caleb Hill, and Rachel Tritt, the Brevard Lady Devils volleyball team earned its first NCHSAA state title in school history, completing the season with an overall record of 32-2. Whereas Coach Corey Bryson was named the 2023 Coach of the Year. Whereas Malia Foster, Malia, are you here? Oh, okay, was named 2023 Player of the Year. Whereas Claire Wilson, is Claire, oh, there, okay, was named, you need name tags, lady, you should make my life so much easier. Claire Wilson was named 2023 Defensive Player of the Year. And whereas through hard work, dedication, teamwork, and commitment, the Lady Blue Devils brought honor upon themselves, Brevard High School, and Transylvania County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Brevard City Council expresses its congratulations and appreciation to the athletes, coaches, staff, and parents of the Brevard High School girls volleyball team. Let it be remembered that each and every one of these individuals are a valuable asset to the city of Brevard and Transylvania County and will shape our future as they continue on the path towards adulthood. Further, I, Mayor Maureen Kopoloff, and Brevard City Council do hereby proclaim Tuesday, November 21st, 2023, as Lady Blue Devils Volleyball Team Day in the city of Brevard. That's right, you get an entire day named after it. And call upon all citizens to join us in recognizing the Brevard High School girls volleyball team and coaching staff for their achievements. Thank you all for an incredibly well done job. I am so very, very proud of you, and our community is just blessed to have coaches, families, and students like all of you. Thank you. Okay, and now, as if one wasn't enough, now, if I could have the coaches and the Brevard High School boys cross country team please come up. And again, it is such an honor for us to have you join us here tonight. We are so proud of each and every one of you for your individual accomplishments and also for your team accomplishments. I think, as your coaches have taught you throughout the year, teamwork is so important, and working together, you can achieve so much more than just individually. So to the coaches, and let me see, I've got Ben Morgan and Jackie Witherspoon. Okay, I was pretty good guessing on those. Okay. Okay. Well, I also have a proclamation for all of you. And this is proclamation number 2023, TAC 22, in recognition of Brevard High School Boys Cross Country Team winning the 2023 state championship. Whereas on November 4th, 2023, Brevard High School Boys Cross Country Team captured the 2023 North Carolina High School Athletic Association NCHSAA 2A Cross Country State Championship. And whereas, under the guidance of Coach Ben Morgan and Coach Jackie Witherspoon, the Brevard Blue Devils cross country team had a perfect championship season, winning conference, regionals, and the state championship, the second state championship in school history. Woo, woo! Whereas this year, the boys cross country team won the historical Freedom Invitational and the prestigious Wendy's Invitational. Yay. Whereas Leo Murray, raise your hand, Avon Hinkle, and Keaton Campbell, okay, gained all-star honors. Congratulations. Whereas through hard work, dedication, teamwork, and commitment, the boys cross-country team brought honor upon themselves, Brevard High School, and Transylvania County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Brevard City Council expresses its congratulations and appreciation to the athletes, the coaches, the staff, and the parents of the Brevard High School boys cross-country team. Let it be remembered that each and every one of these individuals are a valuable asset to the city of Brevard and Transylvania County and will shape our future as they continue on the path towards adulthood. Further, I, Mayor Maureen Kopoloff, and Brevard City Council do hereby proclaim Wednesday, November 22nd, The girls got Tuesday, you guys got Wednesday as Blue Devils Boys Cross Country Team Day in the city of Brevard, North Carolina, and call upon all citizens to join us in recognizing the Brevard High School Boys Cross Country Team and coaching staff for their achievements. Congratulations. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, families, for joining us. You've simply made this ceremony joyful.
Congratulations.
So much. Jackie, congratulations. Good job.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Time to labor.
School board will not be this much fun. Thank you.
Her husband told me she wore a shirt for 3 days, wouldn't take it off.
Congratulations.
Corey, I could see that. All right.
I mean, all those honors that they got. Individually.
Okay. No. Okay, moving on to public comments. We have nobody that signed up for public comments, so I will open and close public comments right there. Next, we are moving on to special presentations. And I believe we have the water shortage response plan briefing by the city manager and our,
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Alex, I actually got a PowerPoint down there I'd ask
oh, okay.
you to bring up if you don't mind. And if you can help me scroll through the slides. This is something I introduced at our last meeting. You know, my grandmother used to say, God willing and the creek don't rise. Well, here we want God willing and the creek to rise.
Yes.
And maybe today's rain will help a little bit, and certainly the rain that's forecast for tomorrow should help a little bit. But I think this is important to review anyway, even though it may be a moot point this week, because I think we'll certainly encounter another drought in the future. You know, if you read climate studies, they say that drought is one of the effects of climate change that will most impact Western North Carolina. So it's only a matter of time before we have to implement this, if not today, then in the future. So here's some background information on our water shortage plan. I won't read the signs, but I'll just add some supplemental information to what you see there on the screen. Droughts are proclaimed by a group called the North Carolina Drought Management Advisory Council, which, like the requirement that we have a water shortage plan, is established by the statute you see there. It is made up of people from the North Carolina Cooperative Extension, the Climate Office at North Carolina State University, the public staff of the North Carolina Utilities Commission, the Wildlife Resources Commission, the Departments of Agriculture, Commerce, and Public Safety at the state level, the National Weather Service, the U.S. Geological Survey Corps, the Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and FEMA. So everyone who's anyone in the realm of climate science in government in the state participates in this. And I think someone from Duke Energy participates in it too, since they control so many dams and lakes across the state that supply water to other municipalities. Next slide, please. All right, current conditions. The first two are not so great. The staff report on your agenda had our status as of November 9th. It's since been updated. It's updated weekly. And as of the 16th, the southern half of Transylvania County has moved up into extreme drought. The northern part, which is where the city sits, and fortunately our water source, Cathy's Creek, sits, is still only in severe drought. However, with that said, these last two bullets are better news, hopeful news. The first is our water plant is indeed pumping its normal rate at 1,800 gallons per minute. And I'll ask Dennis to stand up here in a minute. Is he here? Dennis, there he is, right there. And describe a little bit more about conditions of the plant. But while he's coming up to the podium, I'll also point out that, as I referenced earlier, there's a 80% chance of rain tonight and a 100% chance tomorrow. So we'll get a little bit of relief. So Dennis, if you can take a minute or two and describe conditions at the plant right now.
All right, for the moment, I mean, the creek's low, but it's still coming in fine. We've got a wet well that we pump out of that's underneath what we call the raw building. That's where all our pumps are. And there's a level gauge on it, and it's running about normal. It might be down half an inch or so from if the creek was up more, but it's fine. We're not pumping it out faster than it can come in, and we still have plenty of water going down the creek to sustain fish and aquatic life. Whoever picked the location for our water plant years and years ago actually did a really, really, really good job. I don't know if anybody's been up in the forest, went up Davidson River recently, but Cathy's Creek looks a lot better than the Davidson River does at the moment. For now, we are fine. We are still running at 1,800 gallons a minute. Our first trigger is when we get to where we can't sustain 1,700 gallons a minute. So we're still 100 gallons per minute better than what our first trigger would tell us to do something. And hopefully it will rain quite a bit tonight and tomorrow. And I promise you here, at some point in time, it's going to start raining, and we'll wonder if it's ever going to quit raining. Because we are in Brevard. It's Transylvania County. This is a rainy place, folks. But we are okay for now.
Thank you, sir. So Dennis pointed out a nuance that I want to make sure everyone recognized, and that is our water shortage plan is not triggered by a drought classification. It is in some places, but not here. In fact, ours is triggered, as Dennis alluded, by the amount of water our pumps can pump, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but if you can go to the next slide, please. Before I get there, I want to go over the types of water use that our ordinance describes. Type 1 is essential, right? Necessary for life, health, and safety. Type 3 is what I'm going to summarize as elective uses. And then type 2 is kind of a mixture of both. Some things that are necessary, but others that you could conserve on. And so when we start talking about conservation measures, it's really going to be focused in the uses described in type 2. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to linger on this slide for a minute because this is where the most notable content of my presentation lives. But here are our triggers. Stage 1 and the conservation measures that it calls for would be triggered when Dennis's plant is pumping less or can pump less than 1,700 gallons per minute. The measures that this would trigger are all voluntary. It would essentially be a public education campaign to try to get all our utility customers to conserve voluntarily. And the goal that's outlined in the ordinance is a savings of 10% off our normal consumption with these measures. And 10% of our normal consumption for November is about 250,000 gallons a day. And there's no enforcement here. In a minute, I'll go over some examples of the type of public outreach that we produce and send out if we get to this stage. Stage 2 is if Dennis's plant can produce less than 1,500 gallons a minute. This is where we start getting into mandatory restrictions. So this is where it gets a little more challenging. In this stage, only uses classified in type 1 and 2 are allowed. Our goal here is to conserve 20% of our normal daily usage, so about 500,000 gallons. And as you can see over on the right, I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but it's got a list of the enforcement methods that the ordinance provides for us in that stage. And then finally, stage 3, this is if it were really dry and we were taking serious steps. This essentially prohibits all uses except type 1. So only uses that are essential for life, sanitation, and safety. And firefighting would be the only allowable outdoor water use. Our goal is to save about 750,000 gallons per day with these conservation measures. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, the enforcement provisions are pretty strict. Next slide, please. All right, so the ordinance prescribes the type of outreach that we have to do. But since the ordinance is 13 years old, it was developed before social media was as ubiquitous as it is now. And so we would supplement the required outreach in the newspaper, local radio, and TV with our social media platforms. And of course, we've got our brand new Civic Alert, right? Civic Alert tool that we would use for this. And so next slide, please, Alex. Hendersonville, who, as I mentioned before, is already in their water shortage plan. Here are a couple of examples of their outreach. This one's from the 13th of October. Next slide. The 20th of October gets a little more descriptive and a little more urgent. And then finally, their most recent on October 27th, a little bit more descriptive and urgent yet. And so we would do similar things across our platforms along with radio and website and newspaper coverage. Next slide, please. But if it gets to the point where we have to enter into the compulsory conservation, these are the main enforcement mechanisms that we have. Stage 2, every gallon that you use above 2,000, you'll be charged our rate and a half for. And so there's a financial incentive for folks to use less water. And folks, let me tell you, they work. When I was working for the city of Charlotte in 2010 or so, there was a big drought there. They implemented conservation rates where the more you use, the more you paid. And it worked so well that they raised significantly less revenue than they had budgeted, and they had to put off doing some capital projects for a few years while they caught back up. So it works. Stage 2, it would be rate and a half, as I mentioned. And stage 3, it would be twice the normal rate. So again, every gallon over 2,000, your first 2,000, you pay the same rate as you always do. Every gallon over 2,000, you'd pay 1.5 or 2 times, depending on the stage. Sorry, go back, please, for a second, Alex. And there's no distinction between types of customers. This is true for residential, commercial, institutional, and industrial customers. All right, for stages 2 and 3, the Brevard Police Department is empowered to enforce the conservation requirements, but likely we wouldn't move to proactive enforcement until stage 3. In stage 2, we would just use citizen reporting and investigate complaints of overuse that we received from outside sources. We'd only be driving around making sure folks were conserving if we got into stage 3. Okay, next slide, please. All right, and then finally, I want to show you what a example bill would look like if we implemented the conservation rate. You can see the third line down there, water conservation rate. In this case, a household that uses 2,500 gallons, we've broken out their last 500 gallons and showed what the total for those 500 gallons would be. In this case, $6.84. Their first 2,000 gallons, as I said, the normal rate. For a household, I'm not showing you the normal bill for this household, but if I did, you'd see that for a household that uses 2,500 gallons a month, the conservation surcharge, so to speak, would be about $1.75. $1.75. Now, of course, that goes up significantly the more water you use, but that's the point of conservation rates, is to try to get folks to use less money. So a noticeable impact, but not a burdensome one for an average household using 2,500 gallons. So. That's all I got. Didn't, oh, go back, please. That's for the next presentation, Alex. Okay, we'll leave that here. That's all I got on my presentation for now. Like I said, I hope it is moot for now. But Dennis and I are here to answer any questions.
Council, are there any questions? Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I just wondered if have we ever had to use this policy to our knowledge?
I have not.
Okay,
Maybe once upon a time.
Okay.
I won't say no,
yeah,
because it only went in 2010, so, no.
okay. And on the enforcement piece, is that, it was a little unclear, is that across the board for everyone if we move to stage 2? Or is it for if you're in violation of the
Can you move back up?
the guidelines of stage 2?
Which table? The one with the blue shading. Keep going up. Towards the top, yeah, keep going. All right, let's keep it on here. I'm sorry, would you ask that question again?
So if we move to stage 2,
Yeah.
is the surcharge applied to every user?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so regardless of whether they're, you know, in compliance with the restrictions that
That's
we've
right.
set into place?
Yes, sir.
That's across the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The second paragraph there of the enforcement section, those are the provisions that would apply to offenders,
Right.
folks that are using their water in violation of the types of uses that are permitted.
Okay. I did have, I guess, a couple comments after reading through this. I wonder if we should, the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 can be a little bit confusing because it's sort of like the DEF CON system. I'm sure our mayor knows all about that, but I always forget, like, is DEF CON 1 bad or is 5 bad? I can't remember. So I think changing it to a color system may help with some of that. I don't know, the importance of that. But just for clarity's sake, if we ever had to communicate this out, I think it might be helpful.
We can do that in our outreach if we move to that.
Yeah. And then the other comment I had was just, obviously, we've made some decisions about a interconnection with our neighbors over in Rosman. And I'm not sure if we should review this policy in regards to that and add some provisions in case we ever got into a situation where we were sharing water with Rosman and yet we were having trouble with our own. I know we discussed some of that when the interconnection was before us, but it might be worth putting it into this policy as well.
Yes, sir.
I think that's it for me.
Mr. Daniel?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Morrow?
I think it's extremely well organized and Dennis, I want to tell you, that when the plant was built, none of those issues were without controversy. Lawyers, court cases, et cetera. It's a good thing we won everything. But I think if you look back, you'll see Dave Thorne's hand on the tiller.
Ms. Dinkins?
I was curious, do we know who the biggest water users are in terms of commercial users?
Yes,
I know
we do.
one, yeah.
Aaron knows one well, but actually they're an institute,
Oh, I was being completely innocent about that. I just realized what I'm saying. Okay, go ahead.
They're an industrial user.
Okay,
But the highest commercial users are, in no particular order, the hospital, Ingles grocery stores, the college, the laundromat on Caldwell Street.
Largest,
Yeah.
I think it's number 1 on the list.
is the college?
Well, yeah, he's
We're-
institutional.
we're-
Oscar Blues is institutional.
He's blushing.
So, yeah. Ingles, the college, the hospital, laundromats,
Car washes?
car wash, yeah. I mean, if I was going to name the top 10, that'd be 6 of them right there. So Those are the types of users that are heavy users of water.
So I hope that rain will just be falling like you've predicted. But I'm wondering, with this plan, let's say we have a family with lots of kids living in one house. Everybody needs to take a shower. Are we being overly punitive to a residential user versus things like car washes that we could all do without? In other words, I'm not getting punished if I wash my car twice a day, am I? Because it's not on my tap.
So that is an activity that's classified under stage 3.
Okay.
And so if we moved into level 3 of the drought, no, excuse me, that's type 3. And so if we moved into stage 3, that is the type of activity that would be prohibited. A household that's only using water for cleaning, drinking, toilets, and so forth will never be penalized. Those are all permitted activities under every stage.
Okay.
The only effect that they would see is if they used over 2,000 gallons, they'd pay a little extra for the extra water that they use. And so it would behoove that household to be thoughtful about their water use.
Tell that to my teenage son. He likes 2 showers a day. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Hypothetically, let's say we're in stage 2. Looking at the projected rainfall that we've got coming up in the next 2 days, what what benefit could that give? So we're looking at tonight, I think it was said 0.03, tomorrow 0.35. If we were in stage 2, would that bump us up to 1,700 or 1,800? Do you have enough?
It would totally depend on how the plant was working, how it could pump the water in. The triggers are gonna stay the same. And if we got a little, say we was in stage 2, and we got some rain, and we was able to pump more water, that could put us back to stage 1.
Okay.
And we're not in stage anyway now.
Yeah.
But, yes.
Yeah, just hypothetically, I guess, the amount and for how long, right?
It could, if we was in stage 2, we could get a rainy day, maybe go back to stage 1, and then maybe 2 weeks later, have to go right back to stage 2 if it rained one day.
Gotcha.
The trigger's always gonna be what we can pump and sustain.
Okay.
Okay, that all, Mr. Jones? All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for a very comprehensive brief. All right, we are moving on to public hearings. Our first public hearing is the proposed text amendment to the City of Brevard Unified Development Ordinance, Chapters 2, 3, 10, and 19, extraction uses. And I believe our Deputy Planning Director, Aaron Bland, is going to present.
Okay, thank you. So in fielding inquiries during the day-to-day administration of the UDO, planning staff realized that we have no land use in our use matrix for things like mines and quarries and other uses that remove rock, stone, ore, soil, gravel, those sorts of things from the surface or subsurface, which are commonly referred to as extractive industries. Because these are capable of generating large amounts of traffic, noise, dust, and much of their activity occurs outdoors, staff has initiated this text amendment to specifically add these uses to the UDO. So if they were to ever come up, we would have an ability to regulate them appropriately. So to do that, this amendment adds extractive uses to the UDO in several places. I'll run through those pretty quick. We will add it to the use matrix under the manufacturing, wholesale, and storage category. We're proposing 2 different uses. One would just be extractive uses in general, and then one would be extractive uses that require blasting. We are proposing the general use be permitted by right in general industrial, and the blasting version be allowed only with a special use permit in general industrial. We have added some use standards to Chapter 3, including limiting hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then the blasting use could not blast between 5 p.m. and 9 a.m., nor on Sundays or federal holidays. Chapter 10 would have some parking standards for these uses. If you'll remember, the recently adopted standards had a specific kind of catch-all definition for those that have uses that have widely varying parking demand characteristics. It kicks you to a section 10.3D. We're proposing adding it to those standards instead of having a typical standard that applies to all. Since different uses are going to have different needs, we'll address those on a case-by-case basis. And then, of course, the two different uses are added to Chapter 19, which is the definitions chapter. Ensuring that the use matrix is robust and does not have missing land uses is just a general best practice for zoning ordinances. And additionally, the comprehensive plan has an item that speaks to maintaining clear and understandable planning documents, including the UDO. Planning Board discussed this at their October meeting and unanimously recommended approval after some minor changes. And in accordance with the general statutes, they also submit to you the attached statement of consistency. That's the overview. I'm happy to answer any specific questions or anything else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bland. I will open the public hearing. Seeing as nobody signed up to speak at the public hearing, I will officially close the public hearing. Moving on to our second public hearing.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Jones, go ahead.
My question is, have we currently or in the past had any, what's the term that was used here? Extractive industries other than like a developer moving or grading? And if so, does that count?
We have one sand mine in the city's jurisdiction on the French Broad River. They are not in the general industrial zoning district, but they've been in operation long enough to be grandfathered in and have pre-existing non-conforming status. But they are being sold to a new owner, and that's what triggered this, is they called to make sure they can continue to operate. And we realized we had no box to fit that use into. So we have one, but it doesn't really apply to them since they're pre-existing and non-conforming, but that's the only one I'm aware of that is currently in our jurisdiction.
So that's within city limits and the ETJ, correct?
It's in the ETJ, yes, these would apply to the entire planning jurisdiction.
So when it comes to developers, in terms of grading and certain types, does that fall into the
No,
same category?
those operations get grading permits specific for land disturbance in terms of development preparations. It's not, the use is in preparation to develop the site further. It's not purely an excavation or extractive use, and that's it. It's in preparation. So that gets a grading land disturbance permit through us and possibly the state as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Moving to our next public hearing. The proposed text amendment to the City of Brevard, the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapters 2, 4, 5, 17, and 19, Building Line Revisions. And Emily Brewer, Senior Planner, is going to present.
Yes. So building lines and yards are a measurement for multiple different standards within our UDO, including fence height and accessory structure placement. We use those every single day. So this is a staff-initiated text amendment that clarifies the definitions for these and other related items. So some of the major elements are revising the building line definition to be a line measured parallel to the right-of-way line or property line, touching that part of the building closest to the right-of-way or property line. Yard, which would now be a space that lies between the principal building and the nearest lot line or right-of-way line. And then the fact that the front yard and rear yard would be using the building line, with the side yard consisting of the remainder of the property that's not occupied by buildings. And the frontage line. Frontage line is a line measured across the facade of the portion of the building closest to the street. This can be synonymous with front building line, when the building is oriented towards the street. But we also use this as an opportunity to improve the quality of our graphics and really be able to illustrate some of these key concepts that we use on a daily basis when we're administering the zoning code. So under North Carolina law, land use and development regulations should be objective standards that zoning administrators can apply in implementation, administrative, and enforcement actions. So this is really continuing the work that we're doing to clarify and improve the usability of our planning documents. It is consistent with a number of the elements of the comprehensive land use plan. Specifically, Goal 2, encourage a development pattern that respects Brevard's sense of place and prioritize livable communities. And LUH 19, enhance communication of land use planning efforts, policy development, approvals, and processes. Planning Board heard this at their October meeting and unanimously recommended in favor. There is no action requested at this time. This is just for public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. At this point, I will open the public hearing. Nobody signed up to speak, so I will close the public hearing.
And
Do we
I
have
a
any
question.
questions from council? Mr. Daniel?
My question is, let me get back to the very first part of this. The building line and also the frontage line, it says that it shall not be measured from any unenclosed structure such as a deck or patio.
Correct.
So if I build a deck to have a contra dance on,
We have a section in our UDO that's permitted encroachments, and so that would be, there is some regulations and requirements for those. And uncovered porches are permitted as an encroachment.
but, so you can build as big a deck as you want?
Let me pull up the standards.
I was wondering that, as long as you don't get into the setback.
We have uncovered porches, stoops, and stairs intended primarily for the means of ingress and egress. That's what is currently within our UDO, and it says that this shall be no greater than 50 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a quick comment. I think it's more just for clarity's sake. If I don't know if you can pull up figure 19.3A. It's on, well, page 28.
I'll get
maybe? Okay.
She's getting there.
Take some time. 19, oh, not quite.
No, 52.
A. Yes.
Yeah, so, the yellow area is the rear yard.
Correct.
Correct. I think instead of having the text that's in there that says rear yard, it might be better to have like a key that's outside of the figure that has a little yellow box that says rear yard, because looking at that, it seems like the intention could be that inside that dotted line is the rear yard rather than that entire area. Does that make sense? And I don't know how critical that would be, but I think it would just make the figure a little clearer. So that was my only comment.
That makes sense.
All right.
So that's
Right.
so-
Thank you, Emily. We will move on to our consent and information. The following items are on the consent agenda. 1, the tax settlement report of October 2023. 2, resolution designating Police Chief Tom Jordan as the city's official to make recommendations to the North Carolina ABC Commission. 3, city manager employment agreement amendments. 4, City Council Housing Committee minutes, October 10th, 2023. And 5, City Council Downtown Master Plan Committee minutes, October 11th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent is approved. Moving on to unfinished business. The first item, the proposed text amendment to the City of Brevard Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34, Floodplain Development Revision. And Emily is back up.
Yes, I am. So we talked about this at your last meeting where we held a public hearing, but this is staff proposed amendments to Chapter 34, Flood Damage Prevention of the city's Code of Ordinances. The purpose of this chapter is to promote public health, safety, and general welfare, and to minimize public and private losses due to flood conditions within flood-prone areas by enforcing the provisions that are designed to accomplish these goals. The city planning department is responsible for enforcing these provisions and also to maintain the city's participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. But the city has higher standards that exceed those requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program. It's called the Community Rating System, CRS, which is a voluntary program that incentivizes communities to have higher standards by reducing the in order to reduce the insurance premiums for residents. The City of Brevard is classified as a level 8 community where citizens who need flood insurance are eligible to purchase it at a 10% discount. So as I said, this is a staff-initiated text amendment aimed to better align our ordinance with the model that was provided to us by North Carolina Emergency Management and reflect best practices in floodplain management, improve the usability of our floodplain management regulations, consolidate all of the floodplain enforcement and variance procedures into the Code of Ordinances, and to ensure that we retain our CRS rating and achieve additional points where possible. This is a basic function of city government is to protect health and safety and welfare of its constituents. And so under North Carolina general statutes, the local government is authorized to enact and enforce floodplain regulations in pursuit of that goal. The proposed amendments also align with our Building Brevard 2030 Comprehensive Land Use Plan in a number of different ways. And then this is for a vote tonight. So we are requesting that you take one of the following actions. 1, approve the text amendment as presented. 2, approve the text amendments with modifications that you make. Or 3, reject the text amendment.
Okay. Do I have a motion regarding the amendment?
I move we approve as presented.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Morrow, any comments?
No, I would like to ask one question. When do you propose the next, I guess you'd call it floodplain elevation study? They do that fairly often, or update the map?
I don't know. It was just recently done, I think, last year, so it might be another couple of years until it's done again, but I can check on it, email you if you like.
Because okay, I would like to know.
Yep, I'd be happy to check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Dinkins?
Yeah, what Mr. Mercado said at the last meeting kind of made me go back and read it more closely. And I'm still struggling to understand exactly what we're doing here. So I'm going to challenge you, Emily. Can you give us the elevator pitch for this one in terms of what are we actually doing? Because to me, I feel like we're lowering our standards to that point where we're still going to get the discount, but we're trying to eke out a little bit more land to be used in ways that I'm feeling uncomfortable about, especially if we're talking about droughts and floods.
The vast majority of these text amendments and the text itself comes from North Carolina Emergency Management and what they recommend to be fully in compliance and reflect fully in compliance with North Carolina general statutes and FEMA. So the vast majority of this text amendment reflects that, including a lot of the variance procedures are included in that as well. We did compare against a couple other communities that have a level 8 status, including Asheville is the only regional example, and used that to double check all of our information. And they have basically the same thing for all of these different items. The Asheville one expands upon some of the enforcement requirements. We have expanded on ours similarly, not quite exactly the same, but really making sure that it's in line with what our current UDO is, and what the regulations were prior to this text amendment. We're really just consolidating all of the enforcement and variance procedures into this. I would say one of the things where this exceeds the model ordinance that was provided by North Carolina Emergency Management was in the requirements for the notices. The model ordinance, for example, I don't have it in front of me, but it had very limited requirements and just said before you have a fine, you have to have a notice. So this now has very specific requirements that says if you're in violation, these are the things that need to be included in the notice to make sure that you're able to bring it into compliance if possible, and then be able to take corrective action. So we're trying to make this not only in line with what North Carolina Emergency Management advises us is the best course of action for FEMA and for North Carolina general statutes, but also making it so that it's a lot easier for people to understand the process, because oftentimes people get really confused and it just becomes a very cumbersome process. And so by giving both us as staff and community members kind of a play-by-play of exactly what needs to happen and in what order, we're actually providing a lot more information and more important action steps. That is the vast majority of the text amendments in terms of, and probably all, if not most, all, if not almost all, of the text amendment that differs from the model ordinance that was provided to us.
Why did we have a higher standard to begin with?
For the voluntary program, the CRS program, so that there could be that insurance premium reduction discount for people who need it. And the only other one in Western North Carolina, I believe, was Asheville, and then Hickory was the closest one, I think. So it's very unique, but it's a voluntary program with higher standards for the purpose of providing a discount for those residents in the floodplain.
Oh, okay, so I may not understand this right now. Now, just this is coming up for me. So, but we're keeping the discount, right? We're not
Correct.
trying to get away from the discount.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Can we talk about what kind of uses we're going to be allowing?
This doesn't change the allowable use.
It does not change the allowable uses.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I'm going to pass on further comments at this point.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Mac pretty much stated mine. I was just wondering the frequency that FEMA reviewed the maps, and I didn't know, because sometimes it seems like it's not on a regular, consistent basis. Like sometimes it might be 3 years, another it might be 5 years, or maybe that's just me.
They have a consistent schedule, but they don't stay on it.
That's I mean,
like-
it's supposed to be consistent, but it's just not consistent. Yeah,
It came to our benefit last time, that's why.
yeah.
Mr. Daniel?
No, I have no comments, questions.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I just have a couple of specific questions about the variance section. And reading through the whole thing, that certainly was the part that sort of, I guess my ears perked up at. Well, I wasn't listening to it, but you get the idea. The special facilities, I just wondered why those in particular were called out.
They were called out in both the model ordinance and Asheville and the other ones that we looked at.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we can certainly remove that, but I think, in my personal opinion, that there's enough safeguards in place to keep this in there, specifically that, one, the use needs to serve a critical need in the community. Two, no feasible location exists outside the special flood hazard area. And then you still have to flood-proof the building.
Right.
So it's a very, very limited variance that may be issued for those kind of things. And it is permissible by North Carolina Emergency Management and within other CRS communities, which is why we put it in there. I can't think of any instance where that might be necessary at this point, but having those safeguards in place in the event that a critical need comes up, it could be there. I think I speak for myself and Paul that if you don't want that to be a eligible variance, it certainly could be removed. But I would say most of the variance procedures that are being added here are actually being much more specific and allowing variances in specific nuanced ways. So specific conditions have to be met beyond just the normal variance procedure, which it currently has within our ordinance.
Okay. And on that provision, I guess it's the second provision in there, that no feasible location exists outside the special flood hazard area. That is anywhere in the city, correct? Not just on a particular property.
That would be within the city and the ETJ, yes.
Okay. So if,
But the actual, this is really providing guidance and instructions for the Board of Adjustment. The Board of
Right.
Adjustment would then be able to hear it in a quasi-judicial hearing in order to, they'd hear evidence and testimony and then be able to make a decision. And so some of these items are really providing very nuanced, explicit instructions for them to be able to make those decisions related to the floodplain.
right. Okay, so just hypothetically, we have a, we have a, I'm trying to think of it. We have a nuclear power plant. No, that's a terrible example. Okay, we have an industry that's making chemicals, and they have a site that is near the floodplain, but they're where they actually make the chemicals is not in the floodplain, but they want to store some chemicals. They have need for a storage facility that is near their manufacturing that is in the floodplain, or they want to build a storage facility in the floodplain. And it is directly adjacent to their operation. But there are other places within the city or the ETJ where they could build a chemical storage facility which is not in the floodplain. This variance would then not apply to them.
I would say that the process for them is that they need to meet all of the variance requirements that are in C, requirements for granting a 3426C, where the Board of Adjustment may only grant a variance if it meets the following. So they would have to meet all of those. They would have to provide a written statement that addresses all of the different factors that are included in 3426D, that include things like you need to address the dangers that materials may be swept onto other lands or industry, danger to life or property, et cetera, et cetera. And then they also need to prove that there is the use serves a critical need in the community and no feasible location exists outside of that, and that they're going to flood-proof the structure. Only if they can make that case to the Board of Adjustment, and the Board of Adjustment, through the quasi-judicial process, believes that they have made the case and have enough testimony, then they would be granted the variance.
Okay. And at that point, it would be up to the Board of Adjustment to decide what feasible location
Correct.
actually means.
Correct.
Whether
I would disagree.
Okay.
I think it would have to be, I think it's property that they control. It wouldn't be property that they don't control anywhere in our zoning jurisdiction. I think
Okay,
the variances remain to the property that they control, that they own. That's what I think.
okay.
That's a great question, though.
Yeah,
And we,
That changes.
yeah, and we could certainly write it in there.
They have to prove it. Right, they have to prove that it wouldn't fit anywhere else on their property that's not in the floodplain.
mm-hmm,
They would have to prove it.
Present evidence in the hearing. The board can't base a decision if there's no evidence for it. So if they don't prove that there's nowhere else to put it,
mm-hmm.
the board cannot grant the variance because there's no evidence to base that decision on.
And,
Doesn't look like your example would qualify as a critical facility either, according to the definition.
well, that's where I was going next, is that the definition of a critical need, is that, could that potentially be job creation, economic development, or is it, you know, health
You'll
and
refer to
safety?
Page 91. A structure used to house a function that is especially vulnerable or essential to the community. Uses include but are not limited to child and adult daycare facilities, nursing homes, schools, hospitals, fire, police, and medic facilities, and other uses as determined by the administrator. And so it gives the administrator some leeway, but the
Right.
ones that it's specifically designated don't sound like job creations, what makes them critical.
Okay. Well, I guess that answers my question.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Was yours a nay or an?
It was an A.
It was a nay. So we
Yes.
have 4 ayes and 1 nay. All right, moving on to new business. Times Arcade Alley, authorize city manager to award the contract. I believe the city manager is going to present this.
Yes, I am. So before I start, I just want to apologize to the council. This staff report and presentation doesn't have the level of polish that I usually like to bring these to you with, but we were working under a tight deadline because we want to get this contract approved so that the construction can start and get done before next spring when the visitors start to return to Brevard. So the project budget for Times Arcade Alley was $1,082,000. And that was to include construction and all the professional engineering work that Arbor did for us. The bids came in a little high, but close enough that I think we can make it. So this slide up on the screen shows you the top line in blue, of course, is the budget I just mentioned, and the various shades of gray show the encumbrances that we've already or are about to establish for this project. And you can see that it puts us in a $14,786 hole. So on December the 18th, I'm going to bring you a budget amendment for at least that much, but maybe more considering or depending on the decision you make next. Alex, if you go to the next slide, please. The base construction cost for that was offered to us in the lowest responsive bidder was $1,011,670, as you saw on the last slide. But the bid documents also contained a number of alternatives that we can include if you'd like to. But just know that if you choose to include a couple of these, we'll be paying for it out of another source, probably from the general fund, and Dean and I have identified a couple of different sources of savings in the general fund that we could find this money in. And so the combinations of alternatives are there on the screen in front of you. They all include, each of those columns includes the overage I just mentioned, and then a menu of the various alternatives. And so I guess what I'm asking for you today is to decide whether you want to do which or any of those combinations of additions. And if you choose Combo 3, for example, I'll need you to authorize me to approve a contract in the amount of what you see there at the bottom. So I'll say that the features that the downtown constituents have requested the strongest are the holiday and holiday light receptacle pedestals, followed by the food truck power receptacle.
Wait a minute, Mr. Jones, wait. Mr. Manager, are you finished?
I'm finished. Paul's here to answer any questions about these particulars if you have any.
Okay, I think at this
Can I,
point we need
can I
to.
recommend a procedure, Madam
Yes,
Mayor?
please.
If we could have one of the council members make a motion perhaps to approve the combo that has all of the options in it. And then if during the course of the discussion, well, get a second, of course, in order to facilitate the discussion. And if in the course of discussion, it becomes apparent that that motion needs to be amended, then amended at that time to take them off. That seems to be the cleanest way to do it.
So do I have a motion to approve with Combo 1 added in? That's all of them.
I thought we're going to go combo,
I think combo 2
Five?
is all of them.
combo 2 is all of
Yeah,
them?
Combo 2 is all.
Oh, Combo 2 then,
I'll
sorry.
I'll make a motion, we approve the addition of combo 2.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll open it for discussion. Ms. Dinkins?
Do we allow food trucks other than during events?
Yeah, we do.
We do downtown? Okay.
With a permit.
Is that what we changed a few years ago? Okay. I have no questions.
The generators downtown are not allowed outside of the festival.
Mr. Jones?
I'm curious, what percentage is our general fund at currently?
Well, I haven't received the percentages yet from the audit. I think it was 33% last year.
Hmm.
Of available fund balance. Wilson and I just saw some non-audited information that showed us, our general fund balance was $1.4 million over the minimum.
Oh.
Yeah, that was
Not the
my-
state's minimum, y'all's minimum.
Yeah,
Right.
and that was,
Which is 20.
that was the question I had. I can't remember what we had decided on. What percentage we wanted to keep our fund balance at and where we are. 25%.
I'll just go ahead and tell you that the funding strategy I bring you in 2 weeks is unlikely to have any fund balance in it. I think that we can make it work, particularly if you choose one of the more affordable combinations with operational savings from the current fiscal year. If it does have any fund balance in it, that would not constitute the majority of it. That would just be a small percentage of it.
And my last question is if we so choose to just take a few of these combos, we can add down the line, right? Or is it, once we make this contract, we need to go ahead and decide, is it concrete?
It's always, more economical to do it all at once. So presumably, we could go in and retrofit holiday receptacles at another time, but it would probably cost more than $18,000, and it would mean we'd have to disrupt life in the alley some other time.
Any other questions,
No.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Morrow?
I agree with the power receptacles and the holiday lights. And so the real question is, what type of archway either, or column sign you want? So that's the real question here, I guess.
I'm sorry, Matt, could you repeat?
We're just talking about, so it's the column, either the archway or the column issue.
Right, yeah, so
And the,
you're talking about the difference between combo 1 and 2 there?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really the only issue, so. But I agree with the recommendation on the other two. So I, go either way with the others.
If you were unable to see the plans in your packet because it was so small, I brought the plans with me and I can flip to that page. I know it's awkward, but I can pass this around if you all want to see it.
Yeah. The archway is pretty neat. But
Any other questions, Mr. Wall?
no,
Okay. Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, so the Downtown Master Plan Committee has recommended not putting the arches up.
okay.
And the reasoning, I like the analogy that was given at that time. It's like having a crystal punch bowl and serving punch in paper cups. We'll be spending a lot of money for this feature that we will not be reproducing anywhere else, or be able to reproduce anywhere else in the city. And it's, between the two, it's almost $40,000 for archways, which we have other issues in our downtown public areas that we need to address, that money could be well spent for that. So there's a drawing of a metal signpost which fits what we have downtown already that I think would work just fine. That was not discussed in that by the downtown master plan, but the other item on here is really not an option, is it? The Platt paving that's going to be
Yes,
reimbursed?
sir. So the totals at the bottom approved today, all of those include the $39,000 for that,
Okay.
which we will be reimbursed for, and so.
Yeah, so that's going to happen, and so I would agree with Mike. The food trucks and the holiday lights are really, that we cut back on the overall plan on that as far as the what decorative aspects of what we were going to do. So let's be consistent and just do those bottom three things that I have on my list here. That would be my recommendation.
So looks like you're recommending combo 4?
I can't read that, so.
Sounds like
Yes.
it's combo 4. Okay, thank you.
Number 4.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I just wanted, because I don't think we talked about this in your presentation, but we're talking about $950,000 in grant money that the city has received for this project. $700,000 from NCDUQ for stormwater infrastructure improvements. Was that as a part of ARPA? No? Okay, separate from that. And then $250,000 in the Gold Leaf grant. So that's all that's grant money for the city to help pay for this. Yeah, I think I agree with earlier comments. My only potential follow-up to that is that I know that when the Times Arcade Alley was still a part of the entire downtown streetscape improvement, we had some discussions with the tourism board about paying for certain added features, and I think these were the added features we were referring to. Now, they ended up helping us a lot more than than just that, which we're very thankful for, but I do wonder if they would be interested in helping out with something like this. And I guess my question there is, given the short timeline and their process can take, 2.5 months to really work through. I mean, is that an option, or are we sort of rolling the dice?
Well, I'll share with you the conversation I had with Clark maybe,
Okay.
3 months ago? When Paul and I went to visit with Clark and ask about them contributing to Bracken, which they did, he said, you know, we've already contributed 175,000 for downtown. We're going to give you 30,000 for Bracken. Our numbers are leveling out a little bit, and so we're tightening our belt just a bit. So if you have two, why don't you only ask us for one? And so we asked for Bracken instead of this. So the message we kind of got from Clark was that they were not interested in funding this.
Can I make an additional comment?
Is
to
Mr.
that?
Baker done?
Well, I guess Clark and I are pretty tight, so I think I might call Clark.
The pre-construction meeting is February 13th.
Okay,
That's the pre-construction meeting, so I think,
so changes could be made up until then,
I think so.
potentially? Okay,
Go about the funding source.
My,
okay.
my comments are
Mr.
pertinent to
Daniel?
this discussion.
All right, Mr. Daniel?
So downtown master plan, it took this discussion into consideration and still felt that we did not want to, it's not a matter of money as necessarily as it's addressing that doesn't match, that we can't probably match anywhere else. Back to that, you know, we've got this expensive thing here and nowhere else. And it would just, didn't seem to, that was the.
Yeah.
Getting ready, so that was considered, that it could be paid for, but we still didn't think it was appropriate, so.
Right, okay.
Mr. Baker, did you have a?
That's all, yeah.
All right, I think everybody has commented. So we have a motion. Does anyone wish to amend the motion?
I will amend my motion. I think what I've heard is that the majority of council would support Combo 4. We would add the power receptacles for food trucks and the holiday lights. Is that correct? The bottom two?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have an amended motion. Do I need a second on the amended motion?
Sure, yes, ma'am.
Do I have a second?
Mr.
Second.
Daniel made
Oh,
the
Mr. Daniel.
original, so.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amended motion passes. All right, and that is the end of new business. We will move on to remarks and future agenda considerations. And we will start with Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of comments tonight. I did want to, we had an election since the last time we were up here, and did want to congratulate the folks, including the fella to my right on their victory in the election, and look forward to working with them. And I also wanted to thank the other people that ran in the election. You know, I've said this before, but we had a habit for a while in the city of having some uncontested races, and I think we're all better off when we can have a conversation throughout an election season about the issues that matter to the people of Brevard, and I think this election did just that. So look forward to welcoming those folks up here next time. And those are all the comments I have tonight.
Mr. Daniel?
Well, I will echo, it's nice to have a healthy election. That's what it felt like to me, that folks in our city are engaged and concerned. So thanks to everyone for that. Is this the time to make comments to our departing members, or should that be saved?
We'll be recognizing our departing members on the December 4th meeting.
I'll save further comments till then.
I'm scared.
That sounds ominous.
Oh, my God.
It's
Parting members.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
I also wanted to say congratulations to those who will be sitting up here, and I do believe this election was a very spirited one, and you're right, we had a lot of people who stood up and said, hey, you know, I want to represent our citizens, and I think that's great. I think we need more of that. I think we need people who want to stand up and take action. So I want to thank all of those who ran for office this time. I also wanted to quickly make mention of the Motown Christmas 2023 for Rise and Shine, which is going to take place December 9th. So please, it's a fundraiser for, I think, to me, which is near and dear to my heart because I have children that are part of Rise and Shine. So please take part in that. The Motown celebration is always one of the best. So
Are you singing?
I want people to show up, so no, I will not be singing.
But you'll be dancing.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. That's all I have.
Ms. Dinkins?
I'm not going to repeat what others have said. I echo the excitement of what I consider a real election, especially for posts that in the past it felt like people got an invitation to sit at the popular table and they ran unopposed often. And it did seem to result in spirited conversation and people talking to each other about who they're voting for. And I was pretty pleased with myself because I had the 3 winners' yard signs in my front yard. And they're still in the backyard. I have to now hand them back to the people who won and will replace us up here. I have one more householding item, and I know I've been saying this over and over, but I have a really hard time with our city camper construction site. And the question I have at this point is, what can be done? To me, the silt fencing is a temporary sign that has long outlived its temporary use. It's just a very central to town. We used to call it a marquee site when we were contemplating selling it. And it looks awful. It just looks awful at this point. And I would like for this council going forward to, for me to be able to hand over the baton and for someone to worry about this. I just cannot believe that this is in the center of our town at this point, right next to the courthouse.
Well, he shared with us that he's going to do his cleanup and so forth by the end of the month. So we're at least going to give him till then before we take any regulatory action.
The end of November,
Yes, ma'am.
that's on the record. Okay? I'm going to ask about it December 4th.
Okay.
That's the last thing I do.
Mr. Morrow?
I just want to thank the leadership of the city for inviting all those smiling faces tonight. To have a high school class with 2 state championships is absolutely amazing. And I want to say it was really nice seeing them all sit out there and share with them in their pride. I happened to work with Corey Bryson's husband, and when I congratulated him, he said, my wife put on that state champion shirt and wore it 3 straight days. So, no, it was very meaningful to them, and you could see it on her face tonight.
Mr. Attorney?
I want to also add my congratulations to the new members of council. And I'd like to pass a request along to the clerk to please rearrange the seating so people don't confuse myself and Mr. Wise.
I want them right next to each other, just so I...
That will be disorienting to those people coming to the meeting.
Duly noted.
And so I would just a request.
He's the handsome one.
Which one?
Yeah, he is. And I also want to underline something that went in consent agenda, but that I am pleased that this council has chosen to extend the contract for Wilson Hooper. I think he has done a fabulous job as the city manager so far, and don't get a big head over there. It's in the
too
table
late.
tip. But I did want to congratulate the city for this council for that. I think that's probably, I've said it before, it's one of the most important things you can do is select the manager for the city. And I think this council has done an excellent job at that, and I look forward to continuing to see how this city progresses. So, thank you.
Madam Clerk.
I would just like to wish everyone a happy and blessed Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mac, and thank you, council, for the vote of confidence, and happy Thanksgiving.
Tonight definitely was just a joyful meeting. As people have remarked, it was wonderful to have so many of our young people here that showed the kind of dedication, the kind of teamwork, the kind of perseverance, and came in as state championships. So it was wonderful to be able to share in the joy with our community with that wonderful accomplishment. I too welcome our new council members. I look forward to their being sworn in on December 4th. I hope our community comes to welcome them as they get sworn in and as we really constitute our new city council team. I look forward to another year working with our city manager. And as we move in to the holiday season, just a couple of reminders. We have our tree lighting ceremony on Friday, December 1st. It'll be at dusk, about 5:15. Now, this is different than usual. It is on Friday night with Light Up the Night. And so please join all of your elected officials who will be there. And also then on Saturday at 11 o'clock on December 2nd, we have our holiday parade. Again, a change in time, so I don't want anyone to miss out. This week, of course, we head into Thanksgiving. This is really one of those special holidays where we take time to just express gratitude, to think about our blessings, to reflect on how much we have in terms of being Americans, in terms of our community, our family. We have so much to be grateful for, to be thankful for. And I am so thankful for this community, for some of our incredible organizations. I know Bread of Life will be serving Thanksgiving meal to many who don't have as much as many of us. I know Sharing House has been giving out Thanksgiving supplies. We worked a Pack the Pantry session Saturday for Sharing House and brought in over 6,000 pounds of donated food. We have a community with a tremendous heart, and that, to me, is one of the biggest blessings of being part of Brevard. And I, for one, feel extremely blessed to be your mayor. With that, I believe we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.